All right, I am super excited to be here again on the Nature Journal show because I just had some really cool flowers that I wanted to nature journal with all of you. And I was just realizing while practicing this new, using this new fountain pen I have, I was realizing that these lilies are super fun for blind contour drawings. So we're going to do some blind contour drawings together. I can show you how some of the work that I've been doing with this Fude de Manin pin has been turning out, and I just think that the blind contour drawing is a fun exercise. It's really good for warming up. It's one of those things you can always add into your drawing and nature journaling practice as a warm-up. And so I was just drawing these particular flowers and just realizing how they're perfect for doing blind contour sketches. So I'm going to set up a couple of those, and we'll have ones that you can draw from. And then I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I've been doing with this pen. And then I have some other flowers that we can look at and potentially nature journal and learn about some of the plant families, because tomorrow I'm really excited. I'm going to be talking to Dion Dior. Found her on Instagram. She makes tons of cool art and nature journal pages there. And I'm going to be talking to her tomorrow about a lot of the plant drawing that she does, because she makes some really beautiful nature journal pages with botanical art in them. So on that sort of theme, we're going to do these flowers today. And I have a new type of chocolate that I'm really loving. This stuff is 85%, but really smooth, really good. I just found these at Grocery Outlet recently, and they're very good. So I've got that. I've got my mug of fake coffee made from dandelion, and I've got some new flowers and some old flowers. So some of you have probably been like, Marley, we've seen those. Those are really cool flowers, but we've seen them like 10 times in the last week. Well, I got some other stuff for my garden that maybe you haven't seen or haven't seen in a while, and we'll talk a little bit about plant families and nature journal some of these flowers. All right, so let's do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually make it so that you can only see one of these flowers, and it's probably going to be, you know, partially in front of my face, and I'll take these ones out at least for the time being. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look at the screen while you do this drawing, and you're not going to look at your drawing. So many of you have probably done this before, and basically what I would do, for example, is I would have my page, my journal page down on my table, and I'd be looking at this flower right here. And ideally, you have to have your drawing a little bit away so that you don't see it too well in your peripheral vision. And then as you look at the subject, you just draw without even looking at your paper. And so usually the way you can get away with that is if you don't lift your drawing tool off of the paper, and you just do it as a single drawing. So some of you may have seen my interview with Windsor Violet. His style of doing those kind of free-flowing, almost scribble-like lines in the middle of the drawing can add like a lot of interest to it, and using a blind contour technique has a similar effect. So I'm just going to look at this flower right here, and I'm going to draw it. And usually when you do these blind contour drawings, you give yourself like a minute or maybe even less. So now that you understand how that works, I'm going to move. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the flower into different positions and reveal different parts of it, and then we'll draw it together. My angle is going to be different from yours, but that's okay. So let's start with it in this position right here, and if you want, you could draw the stalk as well. And I think we probably just give ourselves somewhere around like 30 seconds, and I'm going to hold my drawing like this and have my eyes right there on that flower without moving. All right, everybody ready? Go. I picked my pin up, so now I don't know where to put it back down, but I'll just guess. You should be almost done by now. Okay, So you can see that when I picked my pin up, I totally lost where I was. Up here, it looks something like I got some interesting amount of the flower shape. And the whole point of this exercise, though, is to practice because, and also to get better at spending more time looking at the subject than looking at your drawing. Because one of the things you can tell is if you're in a classroom or a group of people that are drawing from life, and you look around and you see that most people are spending more than 50% of their time looking at their drawing, that means they're just adding stuff to their drawing from like their imagination, and they're not actually looking at the thing that they're supposed to be drawing. So by doing this blind contour practice, you get better at spending more time looking at the actual drawing. Just to say, I'm gonna look over here in the comments to see who's here. I see that Nature Sketches is here. Hi, Nature Sketches. Jackson is here. Hi, Jackson. Miguel is here y me estás hablando en español, entonces me estás pidiendo que te hablo en español. Sí hablo español, pero normalmente hago el Nature Journal Show completamente en inglés, pero algún día quiero hacer uno en español. Pero si me haces algunas preguntas en el chat, sí te puedo responder en español. Okay, so thanks to everybody joining in. It looks like there's 5 people on YouTube. I'm not sure about Facebook, but that's an example of a blind contour drawing. It's good if you have a fair amount of space. You can't do it in a really small sketchbook. So let's try again. I'm going to move this into a different position so that it's like that. Now do the same thing, and if you want, you could choose this upper flower, or you could choose this lower flower, or you could try to fit all 3. But we're going to do it in same way, blind contour drawing. So I recommend not picking your drawing tool up off of the paper, and hold it somewhere where your paper's not too close to the subject, or else you'll just see your drawing anyways. And get ready, go. All right, I'm done on mine. Go ahead and make that one a quick one. Sometimes you can stop and add like a few more lines. It's mainly intended as a warm-up. Let's go ahead and do like 2 more quickly and just get our not our creative juices flowing per se, but like our observation, hand-eye coordination. So now you have this new angle, which is kind of interesting. Now get ready, choose one part of it that you're gonna do, unless you're gonna try to fit all of this here, and go. All right, so here's what I got on that last one over here. And I feel like this particular plant and the way the shape of these flowers often lends itself to this particular technique. All right, now I'm going to move these ones out and bring in another one. This has a lot of flowers in it, so it might be better if you just choose like one. Here, maybe I can make these outside of the frame. There we go. All right, this is going to be the last one of the blind contour drawings. Okay, so ready, go. So the next thing from the pure blind contour drawing would be modified contour drawing, where you're basically taking this and looking at your drawing every once in a while. And so it helps loosen you up. So if you notice that you're the kind of that when you do drawings, you're doing you're moving very slowly, you're not looking at the subject very much, and you are maybe making lots of really small lines and you're not getting like long strokes in, then this is a really good exercise for you because it will help loosen you up. All right, so now that we did that, we can do sort of a more in-depth nature journal page. Another thing that you can do that can be fun is you can go back on pages like this where you've done blind contour drawings and then add a watercolor to them. So that is something that can be fun too. Okay, now what I'm going to do is switch to one of these other flowers. Actually, first let's see what I want to try looking at this in the document camera. That's kind of cool. Maybe we should just draw that real quick. See if you can, not necessarily a blind contour drawing, but something along those lines to simplified shape of that flower there, using the same drawing tool that you've been using. Okay. And you'll notice that you will have to create a frame to draw this because it's cropped by the frame. And if you just draw it in the middle of your paper, it won't look quite right. And this is one of those things that is a primarily white subject, and what most of our drawing implements are making dark lines or colored lines. And so portraying white things with those drawing tools can be hard. It's a lot easier if you're using opaque drawing tools. Miguel, la verdad es que no sé exactamente cómo se llama en español, pero en inglés es calla lily. Tal vez buscándolo en Google. Okay, now that we got that angle, I'll show you the way that I went about doing it. And this is one of those things where this is the flower. I mean, I used the ink to show the shadows in the middle. Let's see here if I can show both at the same time. And one thing you could do here is you could color in this whole background, and you could do it black, or you could use watercolor because we did have like a cropped subject. So that's one of the cool things about using cameras is they automatically crop things, which as artists we often forget to do, but it is a really powerful tool to draw inside of a box and be very intentional about how you set up the frame of what you're drawing. Okay, next plant that we're going to nature journal is in the mint family, and I think I've been looking at this one with some of you lately, and you might have seen a picture of it on my Instagram. And this is a really cool salvia. There's another plant in here I should take out first that we'll get to in a second. That's a really good one to know this time of year. Let's see. I don't have that. All right, so this is this really cool salvia, and salvia is in the mint family. And one of the things that tells you that is not the flower itself, but the stems and the leaves. So the stems are square, and the leaves come out opposite of each other. So, for example, I'll pluck this little bit off here. You can see that there's one leaf on this side of the stem, and directly across from it, there's another leaf. You can see forming that cross on my forehead right there, and that's characteristic of this family. So let's go ahead and nature journal this one. And remember that not to get caught up too much in the details. So this isn't botanical illustration, even though the two can be informing of each other. This is going to be more nature journaling. And so we're trying to capture the information that's important to us in an intentional way and not worry about just creating a facsimile of the plant itself. It doesn't need to be a photograph, because we could take a photograph if that's what we needed. Okay, so the first important thing then would be to capture that the opposite leaves and the squareness of the stem, and you could even do that with words if you wanted to. That's always a possibility, and is quick too. I'm going to lay this out so that's a little bit in a better position so that we can all nature journal it together. And I'll draw it from the perspective of the document camera. So we'll be working sort of on the same perspective there. Let me see if I can get the light a little bit better on it. Oops. Okay, well, we'll get better color in a second, but for right now, let's just focus on getting the basic shape. So I'm not gonna necessarily try to draw these leaves perfectly in the perspective of what they actually are right now, even though it is really good to pay attention to that. I'm gonna slightly idealize them. I see there's a little baby leaf there and a little baby leaf here, exactly opposite from each other. I'm gonna make sort of like a line down the middle showing that this is a square stem, right? So a square stem would have a ridge going down it. If I cut it in cross section, it would look something like that. So imagining that, and then imagining that you have these buds coming out exactly opposite from each other on that, and then the leaves come out from there. So understanding some about botany will help you see and draw the things better in the field, but sometimes actually knowing more about something makes it harder to see it in the field. So let's go ahead and all work on our own and get a basic sketch, at least of the outline of this plant. You can add your written observations as you go if you want to, but not necessary. My stem is too fat. Noticing the leaves do have somewhat of a serrated edge to them. Okay, now I'm getting up to the inflorescence, so there's a cluster of flowers. It's not just a single flower here. Okay. And then if it's an inflorescence where the flowers don't all mature at the same time, it can be nice to get flowers at a couple of the different stages. In nature, stages are important, and for identifying things that go through different stages, it's really good if you have examples in your drawing of that. So that's one of those things that you can fictionalize as a nature journaler, as an artist, botanical artist, or whatever. Is there's certain things like that that are important pieces of information to have, and so maybe you'll make the flower look like it has flowers at all three of those important stages, even if the specimen you're looking at might not have that. You could combine like the fully mature flower from one plant could be on the same drawing as the immature flower from another plant. Okay, so these are starting to be some of the important flower parts, and so what I'll probably do is, instead of just doing one like portrait of the plant, I'm going to have these different sort of close-ups. Like this is a close-up of the stem. So I'm going to draw a box around that and write square stem. Square stem there. And then now up here, I'm going to do a zoomed in version of the flower. So I'm going to go ahead and, of a single flower. And I'll make an arrow coming over here for that. And then I'm going to draw there's like one more of these coming up here. All right. And so this ink is not water soluble, so I can paint watercolor on top of this ink now. All right, now I want to zoom in on, so hopefully you've got sort of that basic drawing. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do my watercolor on it right now. So the important thing on this probably would be trying to capture that that really nice purple color that it has. So I'm going to see if I can adjust my light here a little bit to make it better. So there's a certain sort of pink purple color that trying to actually get a good color match on that is worth it. So one thing you could do is you could use like the margin of your paper, like even here right next to where you have the flower, to test out some colors. So I'm going to mix some watercolor, and I think I'm going to try, I'm going to back the camera up a little bit so you can see more of this process. Wait, actually, first I'm going to eat some of this. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some color swatches, and you can do this also. We did this the other day, and we just looked at the color and then tried to mix as close as possible with that color. So I'm going to start with Windsor Violet, which will be, oh, that's Naphthalmide Maroon. No, I'm going to start with Windsor Violet, which is sort of like your sort of stereotypical purple color. And I'm going to look, and I'm see how much bluer that is. That's way too blue. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just get that ready and then look at that again and think, okay, well, that's very pink. So pink, the magenta is a primary color basically, and in my palette that would be quinacridone pink. And I can see that that's too pink compared to my flower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it with the Windsor Violet, the purple, and see what happens. I think that looks pretty good, so I'm actually gonna make some dots here. I don't know how well the camera will pick this up. And if you're using a water brush, it will slowly become more diluted as you go. And so you can create a spectrum with these swatches showing it going from darker and more saturated to paler as it gets more white from the paper showing up through it. All right, so I'm going to write down what that combination was. And it was basically just Windsor Violet, WV, plus quinacridone pink, QP. So later I can look at that, and if it was a really hard color to match, I can look at that later and remember how I made it. If you're just learning watercolor, I highly recommend doing that as much as possible. It will help you learn faster. They're also very fuzzy. I might be able to capture that. If I were doing watercolor of the flowers and I hadn't drawn black lines around them, I could create the effect of a fuzzy flower with my paintbrush. But since I already drew with the ink, I can't do that, which is unfortunate. And that's one thing to think about. And sometimes making ink outlines around everything really traps you. So if that's your style of drawing, just remember there are downsides of that. Okay, so now I'm going to clean off my brush really well, and then I'm going to do that green color. And green is one of those colors people always oversimplify. In our mind, we just oversimplify all vegetation as green. And it's really easy for people to reach into like one of the very saturated greens, for example, and pull that out and start coloring things that way. But we have to really try to pay attention to what we actually see with leaves and plants. Oh no, I'm gonna need to refill my some of my watercolors here pretty soon because they're getting low. Like this Serpentine Genuine is getting really low. So I'm gonna take that Serpentine Genuine. That's kind of what I used for starting all of my greens. And I'm gonna do a color strip down here. And to me, that already looks really close. And that's just straight out of the palette. I didn't mix it with any other greens or any other colors. And I think I'm just gonna go with that. No wonder why I run out of that Serpentine so fast. Serpentine Genuine, it's such a good color for many places where I go. For vegetation, it's like I immediately just grab that Serpentine Genuine. It's great. Okay, now I'm gonna go in here and just, it's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit too toned, but you can see it's pretty close. I'm noticing I almost colored in all these calyxes green, but I'm noticing on there they aren't really, so I'm gonna pay attention to that. Almost all vegetative parts of plants will have, variation in the light and the dark. Sometimes the veins are a paler color green, and so going back in with a second wash, you can accomplish that. But I think I'm just gonna go for kind of showing you how you would do this pretty quickly. It's beeping outside. I think something's getting delivered or there's like a truck. Okay, so you can already see that this is a little bit more than just a species profile. You can see that our color swatches add a visual design element in addition to helping us learn our colors. And so with very little work, well, it also helps that there's this piece of plant lying here that kind of looks like it's part of my page. But with pretty little work, we have created like a basic description, visual description of this plant. So now we can come in and add words. I also want to draw a more zoomed in version of the flower and dissect the flower. So I am going to let this this color dry for a little bit. I'm going to make my note about what color I used here, and it was pure Serpentine Genuine. Okay. I'm going to clean my brush first real quick. How did it go for you? For anyone who's following along, how did your color matching go with this plant? Okay, so get ready because I'm going to move this plant now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a single flower of it and see if I can get the document camera up really close to it. And I'll put the document camera really close to it and we'll draw the flower up close, because with flowers, to learn about them, the best thing to do is to dissect them and look at them up close. And so we have a basic idea of what this plant looks like, this flower looks like, but to get a better idea, we should look at the flower more closely. And certain plants, you can't really learn very much about them without doing this part. So I think I'm going to look here at my scale, and I think my scale is pretty much life size there. You can see that flower pretty matches up pretty much exactly. So maybe I'll do a little bit of measurement actually of what size that is. And it is, let's see here. That whole inflorescence is is like a 4 centimeter cluster. So I'm just gonna go like this. I'm gonna write actual size real small because if you measure that and it's 4 centimeters, then you know it's actual size. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna zoom in on, whoa, its little cap already fell off. It's already falling apart. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in on one individual flower at a time. So like I said, this part is called the inflorescence. This whole thing is an inflorescence, and this is an individual flower. So I think it might be a little bit, the exposure might be a little bit weird for you, but that I think that's actually going to make it easier to draw this. One thing you might not see in your version of it is the fuzziness of the flower. The flower is quite fuzzy. I'm going to try to get some of the hair. There are hairs coming off of it. Hard to draw with this kind of drawing tool. It'd probably be easier to wait until I'm doing watercolor. And I'm going to draw, because that green thing's separate, I'm going to draw it as a separate unit. And this is kind of where the pink part ends. You can see there's a clear ending there to the pink part. All right, now I'm going to draw the things that are coming out the front. So there's two pink filament-like things here. Actually, I shouldn't call them filaments because I think that has a different meaning. But there's basically two strands like this with little yellow footballs on the end of them, or hot dog buns. And then there's this thing that comes out in the back that looks like a snake's tongue that divides in two. All right, that's basically like the main information from that flower that's actually important. If we had a dissecting scope, we could go closer. Maybe one thing I could do is draw some of these ones at different stages, and that might just be kind of artistically interesting to have there. So I'll put out sort of a spectrum, and you can fit these into different places in your composition and probably make something cool. Like maybe some of them could go like above it. Oh, there's nectar leaking out. And then some could go beneath it. I'm going to just do like one more small one down here. All right, so you can see how I just drew them at these different stages. And it's just kind of fun. I could probably just draw a bunch more of those all over the place. So I'm going to go ahead and come back and add color. And now would also be a time where you could do a second wash on some of these other things if you want to do a second wash. But I think I'm just going to do a single wash today. Should keep it as simple as possible. All right. So let me get my colors. And it's good that I mixed up enough of these, I think, to keep going without having to mix the new color every time. Because if you have to mix the new color every time, it's really annoying. And you might get it wrong. So you could, this would be a place too if you did some planning or if you did an underdrawing with pencil, graphite pencil, you would be able to get this fuzzy texture of the flowers more easily. But what you can see here is I broke the outline. So instead of having a solid outline, I have these little black ink marks going out to the side, sort of representing hair. And that makes a really big difference. Or even just not following the outline everywhere, that will create the effect of one of these fuzzy flowers. Because otherwise it's sort of hard to get that appreciation of the texture of those things. But that is one trick to do with ink, is to make those lines. But you'll also notice that my curves got thrown off when I do it that way. So it's harder to draw the outline of something. But if you're going to have time and you're not going straight to ink, you could start with graphite pencil and then erase it. Okay, so now I'm going to blow these flowers out of the way. So hopefully you already drew those. And I'm just going to do a little title piece. And this is Salvia purpurea or purpurea. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. That's the whole point of Latin and Greek being used for plants and scientific nomenclatures, because people don't know how to pronounce them, because the native speakers are dead, at least with Latin. I don't know about Greek, how much it's changed. Okay, so I'm going to position that like that, and I'm just going to do a little title here. So an important thing to remember is with Latin names, they are in italics. So I'm going to do bubble letters and italics. I probably should have measured out my space a little bit to be more careful and thoughtful. Whoa. Okay, that's the genus. And I'm just going to do the species name not in bubble letters, and it's Gesneriflora, and it's italics also, but not capitalized. So the genus is always capitalized, the species is always lowercase. Okay, so right now it's kind of like a species profile. So this is very vanilla nature journaling. And hopefully you go beyond this. I mean, this is fine, but if this is all the only kind of nature journaling you do every day, I hope you have like a really clear reason why that's the only kind of nature journaling you're doing. And if you don't have a reason, I wonder why. And maybe there's other types of nature journaling that would be really fun and really expanding of your learning and your practice. So anyways, what I'm going to do is I am going to like make a little spot where I can do some homework and like add maybe a map or something for about where it comes from. So I will just leave sort of like a really rough, actually I'm just going to use graphite pencil right now and make sort of like, I'm imagining this is from, if it's not Mexico or Central America, then it's from South America, because that's pretty much the extent of where the salvia is. Well, actually, that's not true, but I'm pretty sure this is a New World neotropic salvia. So I'm going to leave space for this map here, and then I will do something with that later. I don't think I'll put a square around it because I have a square right here. Okay, great. So we nature journaled one flower. Now let's go to another one, and let's do a slightly different approach this time. Let's do another version of the blind contour drawing real quick. So I'm going to switch cameras. Oops, I should leave that one down. Okay, so let's do another blind contour drawing. And this time it's going to be way harder. So you're going to have to come up with ways to simplify what you see. And this is what happens a lot of times with with plants in nature is they're overly complicated, and in our nature journals we need to be able to simplify them. Even if you're doing like a really long painting, you have to be able to simplify them. So I'm actually going to put a piece of to make this a little bit easier for you, I'm going to put a piece of newsprint behind it. I think. Let's see if this works. I don't know if that actually makes it that much easier, but it makes it way harder for me to see what's happening. That's for sure. Okay, let's try this though. This will be an experiment. Okay, cool. So we're gonna do a sketch of this, and where's that flower? Other flower coming from? There's just too many flowers everywhere. Okay, so do a blind contour drawing of that. So basically, you're gonna hold your drawing tool onto the paper and move it without picking it up. And you can do a slightly modified blind contour if you want, and try to simplify the shape. Try to imagine what are ways that you could use lines to simplify that shape but convey the main patterns that are happening there. And remember, we did talk about one pattern on the last plant, and that was called opposite leaves. And this one has the opposite of that, which is alternate leaves. So that would be one thing that as you're kind of trying to figure out how to simplify this in a blind contour drawing, that you wouldn't want to fudge, because if you did draw this plant as having opposite leaves, that would be botanically incorrect, and that would be one of the things that you would definitely want to capture. So I'm doing a little bit of a combination of going from sort of like a blind contour style of drawing to looking up and observing the subject. And you can probably see my head like poking around the side. That's so funny. But this is just kind of a good warm up to push yourself to not focus on getting overwhelmed by the details, but like how could you try to draw something like this quickly. And you also could do another approach would be to reduce what you're seeing. So that's why we use a viewfinder a lot of times in nature journaling and drawing and painting in general, because we're trying to reduce the amount of information. So what would be one way that you could do that now? Well, you could hold up a frame to the screen and limit what you're seeing. Or you could just use your mind and say, I'm just going to choose that one part that's like a little broccoli bud, and I'm just going to do a blind contour drawing of that part and not get overwhelmed by all the rest. Okay. All right, go ahead and put your drawing tools down. I'll show you what I did. Sometimes it's hard to do the activity while talking about it at the same time. So hopefully yours looked better than mine, or you learned more. And this is always, these kind of quick drawings can always be a good practice, a good warm up. But I tried to just simplify it into sort of like a forest situation going on there. Half of that was like blind contour drawings, and half of it was looking up and back and forth at my drawing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get more in depth, and we are going to approach this sort of the way that we approached the last one, and actually nature journal it a little bit more. So you can come back to oh shoot, I wrote Salvia gesniflora, but it's Salvia purpurea. Dang it. So you can come back and always add like more different questions and stuff like that. That would definitely automatically make it into more of a nature journal page. We just kept it really simple for right now, and it's almost like a species, basically a species profile. But you could, for example, create a list of all of the different pollinators that you see coming to this plant, or what things eat it or don't eat it. But I'm just going to correct the species name there because it's purpurea. not Gesneriflora. And I'll make like a silly face next to that, just because that way I can get over not worry too much about the fact that I messed up the species name. Okay, all right, so next let's nature journal this, this plant right here. And this is a really important plant family that you probably eat very frequently. So this is the Brassicaceae, and you can see, especially these white ones that are facing right towards you, that they have 4 petals that are basically directly across from each other. And this family used to be called the Cruciferae because it looks like the flowers are in a cross. And this one might even be more dramatically that way, like skinnier petals than the white one. So that is a very important characteristic with this family, that they have those 4 petals straight opposite from each other. They also have alternate leaves like we saw when we were drawing these stems. Even though in some places it looks like they're straight across from each other, they're coming out in an alternate way. That's really important. And then the other thing that hopefully we'll be able to see on this plant is that they have a superior ovary. So I think these flowers are big enough for us to see it. But this individual flower right here, if we start taking these petals off, okay, all the petals are off. What do we see now? We see, how many male parts is that? There are 1, ooh. Good thing this is a large flower. Okay, so I'm pulling off all of these. Maybe I'll put it on the overhead camera again. It's hard to get these really close-up ones. I might need to get a special camera just for looking at things really close up. But basically there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these male parts, and there's a single female part in the middle, and that is the ovary. And that turns into, if you've ever seen any type of mustard seed pods or any type of kale or cabbage pods, they all have this, they're like a little capsule, and that's what this is going to turn into right here. So that is basically how how you can tell it's this family. They also often have like really smelly foliage and stuff like that. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to lay a piece of it on the table, and we can nature journal it at the same time. So let me put some paper down to help you see that better. It's got so many flowers on my desk. It's kind of out of control. All right, here we go. If you're following along, you're probably going to have one nature journal page full already, and we're about to get another one, so that'll be great. All right, now let me choose which of these we're going to look at. Let's choose this one. It has sort of different stages, or is that just unhealthy? Here we go. How about this one? All right, let me get this in a position that you can see all the important stuff. And we're going to do a little more of like a botanical drawing nature journal page on this, like we did with the last Salvia. Just lay those ones out like that. And there's flowers at a couple different stages, so it'd be really great to try to capture this one that's sort of yellow still. You can see petals, but they're sort of yellow in the middle, to these ones that are fully open. There's none that have already fallen off yet. This plant hasn't been flowering for that long, so there's no mature pods. And now I'm going to get another flower and put it here so that you can look at it straight on. Let's see, or try at least. There, I tried to balance one facing straight towards the camera. There. So if you want to get one facing straight towards the camera, there's that. And maybe I can even bring the camera down a little bit more. We'll start here and draw sort of like a zoomed out version of it, and then we'll get closer in a second. Actually, I'm going to move this that way a little bit. Sorry. Okay, let's go. Now, what are some of the things from our warm-up that will help you now? How can you take some of the lessons? Like, don't be too tight in your drawing. Because remember, if you're doing this in the field or want to be able to do this in a relative fast amount of time, you can't be too uptight about getting everything perfect. And knowing how to use your time as an artist is super important. So one of the things I don't want to fudge is I don't want to make these coming out opposite of each other. Does that make sense? So like if this stem, I had drawn it directly across from that one, or I drew multiples like that in that pattern, that would be the wrong information, and it would make it seem like a different plant. To anybody that knew about plant families, that's one of the things that would be inaccurate. But if you don't know that, it's easy to just fudge certain aspects of the, because there's other things you could fudge that wouldn't really matter as much. But as you study botany, you'll learn which are the things that you have to get just right and which are the things that you can fudge. HG says broccoli. Yeah, it is closely related to, this one's actually, I think it's a mix of a wild cabbage and a lacinato kale, but broccoli is definitely in this family. Some of them have yellow flowers too. Like we looked at one of the ones that has yellow flowers, and there are some in this family that have purple flowers, but yellow and white are really common for a lot of the domestic ones. Okay, now that I have this side view pretty dialed in, I'm going to do this front on view of the flower. Like this is enough information here. All right, Jackson's got to go. See ya, Jackson. So I'm going to do a zoomed in version of, I think I'm going to do this one. So I like to use my gray and make like a, in this case, it's so close. Maybe I don't actually need to do this. And then do the big one there. Since I already did the square here, it'd be kind of annoying to do the square on this side too. It's not really necessary. Okay, so the zoomed in version of the flower. Definitely want to capture the way that it's, oh no, that's too zoomed in. There's not going to be room for the rest down below. All right, think fast, Marley. Fit it underneath, I guess. That's one of the things about going straight to ink. They're wrinkly near the tips. Okay, so let's see. 1, 2, 3. This time I'm noticing 6 male parts. I think before when I counted, I was wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 3, 4, 5, 6 male parts. So even just writing that down, if you can't see them or can't draw them. Ooh, HG has tatsoi flowering right now. That's cool. That would be fun to Nature Journal. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then a central stigma, but that's basically the flower up close. It's hard to draw up close. Oh, these things are important too, the sepals. Okay, so I'm going to use some writing since that drawing doesn't convey all the information, with little arrows pointing the parts I'm talking about. So right here would be wrinkly petals. And remember, you can always come back to these videos. If I moved the subject out of the way too soon and you didn't finish, you can always go back or pause. I think you can even pause the live video, but you can always go back for sepals. Okay, now I'm going to draw a close-up side view of one of the unopened ones. So like this one right here. So you can see this is different from botanical illustration. Like botanical illustration, we'd spend 5 hours or more just trying to get what this looks like in real life with the exact like folds that it has. This is more like trying to just capture some of the basic information in sketch form and in written form. Oh, that's so cool that you already cut it and we're going to Nature Journal it. I've never really done it before, but like I'm surprised by how nice of a bouquet it actually made. It's cool to have, I try to have flowers all year round, and I really am appreciating a lot of the like vegetable flowers, these things that we think of like, oh, that's from something that you eat as a fruit or as a vegetable. That's not like an ornamental flower, but they are ornamental, and a lot of them are edible too, so that's cool. So this is a close-up side view. I could even just write close-up side view. And for some reason, those ones are kind of yellow. I have to say that this is, I might be mixing up my two different plants here. White petals. And this is yellow petals. All right, so that's basically that. And you can see that even if you don't add color, that can create like a really simple Nature Journal page, but that it has like the important information. And then I'm going to write the genus name is, well, I know the genus and the species. There's just a lot of varieties. So I'm going to look over here at how I did my last one and try to make it basically the same as that, so I have some consistency. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, bubble letters. Okay, bubble letters for the genus. And this one is Brassica. It's the Brassica family, and this is the Brassica genus. That means it's the namesake genus of the family. Brassica. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Sounds like a vampire name. Brassica oleracea. So luckily I don't have any letters that drop tails down, because then I would be in trouble here. Lowercase for the species name always, and italics. Pretty sure it's Oleracea. Oleracea. Ooh, almost made it an A. C-A. Ta-da. Okay, okay. Got that one. And I'm not even going to do, see, I should have done it in this one, not in bubbles, but oh well. So, anyways, I'm not going to even add color to this one. You can see that these are two basic, like really simple botanical drawing / nature journaling pages. And I think I spent like 30 minutes actually drawing. So you can see that's pretty low amount of time needed. And I used plants that I had like nearby. If you have a garden space or even access to a CSA, maybe you could find these. There could be good flowers and plants growing in a vacant lot near your house. And so that gives you an example of what you can do really simply with some botanical drawing and nature journaling. And so I'm super excited. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be doing a live interview with a nature journaler from Australia. You've probably seen the post already, so make sure you sign up for notifications so you know when that's coming out. It's going to be at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but come join and ask. You can ask questions about drawing plants, botanical illustration, nature journaling in Australia, stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. Oh, and if you comment down below questions you think I should ask in the lightning round. If you post down there whatever good questions for the lightning round, that would be awesome because then I'll use them tomorrow. All right, everybody, have a good day. Bye.